Elias Ward had always been drawn to the quiet places of the universe. Where others saw emptiness, he saw potential, hidden beauty, patterns waiting to be discovered, stories trapped in silence. Ellistra was exactly that, a pale, frozen jewel in the Perseus arm, almost entirely devoid of motion, yet humming faintly with a resonance that called to him in dreams before he even arrived. He stepped off the landing pod and onto the icy crust, his boots crunching softly. The air was thin and cold, almost unreal, carrying a faint metallic taste. Above him, Illistra's twin moons glimmered, one pale silver, the other a soft violet, casting long shadows over jagged crystal spires. These spires were everywhere, delicate, translucent towers stretching skyward, like the frozen fingers of some slumbering giant. Elias adjusted his thermal suit and activated the scanner on his wrist. It glowed softly in response to the subtle telepathic fields that saturated the world. The readings were unlike anything he had seen. Illistra wasn't dead, it was dreaming. For days he explored the crystalline valleys, noting the soft hum of the psychic energy that seemed to ripple through the planet itself. There were no animals, no moving life forms, only structures of light and crystal, some floating slightly above the ground, pulsing faintly. And in the middle of a wide valley, Elias saw her. She was unlike anything he had expected. Seren. He would come to know her name later. But at first she was simply a shape, a human-like form suspended within a cocoon of translucent crystal. Her hair floated around her head like liquid silver, and her face was serene, calm, untouched by fear or emotion. Yet something about her drew him closer. The field around her shimmered, subtle but alive, and his scanner's readings spiked. She was awake, but not awake. The Ilari had not experienced individuality for centuries. Their lives were peaceful, yes, but empty. They slept in a networked dream, a collective unconscious that eliminated desire, ambition, and feeling. But this human-like figure, was different. Elias crouched and reached out his gloved hand, hesitating just short of the crystal surface. The air felt charged, like touching the first spark of a lightning storm. His fingers brushed the cold, smooth surface, and then instinctively, he pressed his palm gently against it. A flicker ran through the crystal. Seren's eyes opened slowly, one at a time. Her gaze, liquid and uncomprehending, met his. She blinked as if waking from a very long sleep, and Elias felt a shiver run through him. He had read about humans experiencing emotions after long isolation. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. "Hello," he said softly, careful not to startle her. "I'm Elias, I won't hurt you." Her lips moved, whispering a sound that seemed to resonate inside his mind rather than his ears. "Who?" It was barely audible, yet somehow he heard it perfectly. The psychic field amplified her curiosity, and for the first time in centuries, Illistra's collective mind stirred. The world responded, crystal towers quivered slightly, faint beams of light shifted, and the air seemed to hum with expectation. Elias knew he had broken the rule of his mission. Protocol was clear: study, observe, do not interact directly with native life forms. Yet looking at her, he could not pull away. The network around her was delicate. She was tethered to the collective dream, but somehow, she was beginning to feel something entirely her own. He stayed with her for hours, gently talking, explaining his presence. Serene tried to mimic his words, her voice soft and musical. Each syllable caused a ripple through the psychic field, subtle tremors that spread across the valley. Night fell. The twin moons rose high, painting the valley in surreal violet and silver light. The air shimmered, carrying faint waves of energy that brushed against his skin. He realized the entire planet was responding to this small act, a single human touch. "I don't think she's fully awake yet," he murmured to himself, noting the patterns on his scanner. "But she's close." Elias carefully reached toward her face again. This time he brushed his fingertips lightly against her cheek through the crystal. The effect was immediate. Her eyelids fluttered, her lips parted slightly, and a soft pulse of warmth radiated outward. He could feel it. A gentle hum through his suit, through the ground, through the very air itself. The world around them seemed to sigh. Then, without warning, a low vibration ran through the valley, shaking loose tiny shards of crystal from the spires. Light scattered across the snow-like ground in dazzling patterns. Elias stumbled back, momentarily alarmed. Serene gasped, a sound of wonder rather than fear, and the hum intensified. He watched, awestruck, as the crystal cocoon around her began to crack gently. It was like ice melting in the sun. Faint lines of light traced her form, spreading across the valley. Elias understood. She was awakening. Hours passed, yet it felt like minutes. The energy of Alystra seemed to synchronize with the rhythm of her breathing. Elias spoke softly, telling her about Earth, about humans, about curiosity and dreams. Serene listened, eyes wide, absorbing every word. She repeated a few sounds, each one a note in a song of wonder, her mind stretching toward emotion for the first time. Elias realized that what he had done was monumental. He had not just touched her face. He had touched an entire civilization dormant for centuries. The network of the Ilari was sensitive, fragile, but also capable of transformation. And he had sparked it. He wanted to document everything, but he also knew that this moment could not be rushed. There was no hurry here. The awakening needed patience. He watched as she tentatively lifted a hand, fingers trembling, reaching toward him. He met her halfway, letting her touch his glove. A small pulse of light raced along their connection. "This is new," she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. "It's mine?" "Yes," Elias said softly. "It's yours to explore. Your feelings, your thoughts. They're real. You're real." She smiled, a faint curve of lips that lit her eyes. The valley seemed to respond, the hum rising in intensity, but harmonious now rather than chaotic. The Ilari were stirring. He could feel it in the air, subtle shifts of thought and awareness spreading outward. For the first time in centuries, Elystra's collective mind had a spark of individuality. And at the center of it all was Seren, a single awakened soul learning what it meant to feel. As the night deepened, Elias set up a small camp nearby. He sat quietly, observing her as she explored her sensations. She ran her fingers over her own face, then touched the crystals, giggling softly at the strange warmth they now held. She marveled at the taste of air, at the sound of distant wind through the spires, at the shimmer of moonlight on snow. Each sensation was new, and each one carried the thrill of discovery. Elias knew this was only the beginning. The Ilari network would notice these disturbances. The Council, if they still maintained their old protocols, would not be pleased. And yet, as he watched Seren blink up at the twin moons, he felt hope, a fragile, shimmering hope. Humanity had arrived on Alystra not to conquer, but to awaken. And in the silence between them, he felt something that went beyond science, beyond duty. A connection. Pure, simple, unspoken. A bond that promised change, growth, and wonder. Somewhere in the distance, the valley quivered with a new rhythm, as though the planet itself was breathing. Elias smiled. Tomorrow they would explore what it meant to be alive. Tonight he would simply watch her awaken, marveling at the beauty of a world discovering emotion for the first time, and knowing that he had sparked it all with nothing more than a gentle touch and a slow, patient curiosity. And then, as the first light of Elystra's violet dawn crept over the horizon, Serene whispered again, "Who am I?" Elias answered softly, feeling the pulse of the world echo in his chest. "You are everything." The morning light on Alystra painted the valley in soft violet and silver hues, but nothing could have prepared Elias for the change he found. Serene was fully awake now. She moved with cautious wonder, touching the crystals, laughing softly as they vibrated beneath her fingertips. Every step she took sent faint ripples across the psychic network that had kept her world asleep for centuries. "Look," she whispered, pointing at a cluster of crystals that shifted like liquid. They feel like they're alive." Elias knelt beside her, watching the patterns of light scatter and dance. "They are," he said. "They've been waiting for someone to notice them. And now you can." Serene's eyes sparkled with curiosity. She tried to mimic Elias's gestures, touching, observing, even speaking words she had never used before. Each syllable she formed carried emotion, which in turn pulsed outward, touching other dormant minds across the planet. Elias felt the change ripple through the valley as a gentle tremor, a faint vibration that hummed through the snow, the crystal and the air itself. For centuries, the Ilari had been a civilization without feeling. Their cities had been magnificent, yes, but sterile. Perfect patterns in perfect balance. Now Elias saw the first hints of disruption. One crystal spire began to shimmer erratically, as if it were experiencing surprise. Another pulsed softly, a rhythm that echoed Serene's heartbeat. The planet itself seemed alive, responsive, and frightened by this new energy. "We have to be careful," Elias said. "They might not understand what's happening." Serene nodded. She reached out toward him, fingers brushing his glove. A pulse of warmth surged through him. It was small, subtle, but unmistakable. The connection between them was growing, a bond not of instinct or survival but of curiosity, empathy, and trust. Elias explained everything he knew about the Ilari network. "They've been asleep for hundreds of cycles," he said. "Emotion has been forbidden. But now you've started something new. You can feel. You can touch. You can think for yourself. That's a gift." Saren tilted her head, absorbing his words. "A gift," she repeated softly. "But is it dangerous?" He hesitated. "It could be. The council and the leaders of your people, and they won't understand. They might see this awakening as a threat." The thought of the High Council, those ancient stoic beings who maintained Illustra's perfect order, filled Elias with unease. He had studied them from afar, emotionless, methodical, almost machine-like in their devotion to maintaining harmony. They would not welcome what was happening. Yet at that moment he could not think of the dangers. All he could focus on was Serene, her wide eyes, her smile, her laughter as she twirled through the valley. Every movement she made sent tremors through the psychic field, awakening faint, chaotic emotions in other Ilari who had been connected to the network. "It's beautiful," she whispered, gazing at a floating crystal that reflected the colors of the moons. "Everything feels alive." Elias smiled. "Yes, and it's only the beginning." For the next few days they explored together. Serene discovered the concept of curiosity, wonder, and joy, feelings that the Ilari had not experienced for centuries. She learned to laugh, to speak, and to express herself. Elias taught her about Earth, about humans and their dreams, their stories, and their mistakes. Every lesson was a spark that set the psychic field around Illustra glowing with tiny pulses of life. But with every pulse, the network trembled. The High Council sensed the disruption. From their distant citadel, they watched the valley, their thoughts cold and calculated. They noticed the awakening, and they did not approve. "Something is changing," one counselor said, its voice a faint ripple in the collective mind. "The human has interfered. That Ilari. She is no longer under our control." Another counselor replied, "We must restore order. Emotion is chaos. Emotion is weakness." The decision was made. Serene must be contained. Her mind would be reset, her awakening erased. Elias, unaware of their plans at first, continued to guide her. He did not yet know the danger that was closing in. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Elias and Serene sat atop a hill of crystalline rock, watching the light play across the valley below. "Elias," Serene said softly, "why did you touch me? Why did you wake me?" He looked at her, heart heavy. "Because I had to. Because I couldn't let you remain asleep. I didn't come here to study your world. I came here to understand it. And when I saw you, I realized that some things are more important than rules. Sometimes life itself must be awakened." Serene leaned closer, her hand brushing his. The psychic energy between them pulsed stronger than ever. Elias felt it deep in his chest, a warmth that was not just physical but emotional, a connection that neither human nor Ilari had ever experienced before. Suddenly the ground beneath them trembled. The crystals on the hill began to vibrate violently. A sharp hum rose in the air, echoing across the valley. The Ilari network had reacted to Serene's awakening, sending shockwaves through the planet. Serene gasped. "Elias, I think they know." He nodded. "The council. They will come for you. They will try to erase everything you've learned, everything you've felt." Panic flashed in her eyes. They can do that?" "Yes," Elias said quietly. "But we won't let them. We'll find a way to protect you. We'll find a way to awaken everyone without destroying them." The next day, the High Council's agents arrived. They were tall, luminous figures moving with precise elegance. Their eyes glowed faintly with cold light, scanning the valley for disturbances. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. They were not here to negotiate. Serene froze, sensing their intent. Elias took her hand and whispered, "Stay close to me. Trust me." The agents approached, their movements synchronized, almost like living statues. They spoke without words, projecting thoughts directly into the psychic field. "Return to your network," they demanded. "All deviations must be corrected. Your awakening is forbidden." Serene's hands trembled. She wanted to obey, to retreat into the safety of her cocooned past. But the emotions Elias had helped her feel surged inside her. Courage, love, curiosity. She refused. "No," she said, her voice firm and resonant. I want to feel. I want to live." The council's agents paused, sensing the strength of her resolve. Elias stood protectively in front of her, feeling the hum of the psychic energy spike between them. It was as if Elistra itself was responding, supporting the awakening. Suddenly, a pulse of light erupted from Seren's body, sending waves of energy outward. The ground shook, crystals shivered, and the agents staggered, caught off guard by the power of genuine emotion. For the first time, the Ilari who had been connected to the network began to stir. Confused thoughts, faint feelings, tiny sparks of individuality flickered across the planet. Elias reached out, holding Seren's hand firmly. "We can do this," he whispered. "Together." Seren looked at him, a mixture of fear and wonder in her eyes. "Together," she repeated. They moved through the valley, avoiding the agents, learning to harness the energy of Elistra itself. Seren discovered she could manipulate the crystals, sending pulses of light that shielded them, guided them, and even disoriented the council's agents. Every action she took strengthened her connection to the planet and amplified the awakening. By nightfall, they reached a cliff overlooking the valley. Below them, the first Ilari had fully awakened, moving hesitantly, exploring their own sensations. Laughter, curiosity, and fear, all emotions that had been forbidden, now rippled through the valley like wind through the crystal towers. Elias smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. Humanity had not just awakened Seren, it had begun to awaken an entire civilization. The planet itself was alive, responsive, and radiant with new possibility. Seren turned to him, eyes bright with excitement. "Do you think we can awaken everyone?" Elias nodded. "Yes, and we will. Step by step, emotion by emotion. They will see the world the way you see it now. And someday, they will thank us." She laughed softly, leaning against him. "It feels amazing." "To feel?" "Yes," Elias said, his voice gentle. "It does." They sat there together, watching the valley glow with awakening life. The twin moons reflected in the crystals, painting everything in shades of violet, silver, and gold. The Ilari who had started to awaken were still cautious, unsure, but alive. And Seren, the first of her kind and had sparked it all. The world of Elistra was changing, one heartbeat at a time, and in that quiet moment, Elias realized something profound. Humanity had not come to dominate Elistra. Humanity had come to awaken it. Tomorrow they would face the High Council, the challenges, and the fears of an entire civilization. But tonight they could simply watch the awakening spread, and marvel at what it meant to be truly alive. And for the first time in centuries, Elistra's psychic network hummed not with control, but with emotion, the slow, steady pulse of life itself. The valley shimmered under the twin moons, alive with new energy. Elistra had changed in ways no one had ever imagined. The Ilari who had once slept in perfect, emotionless harmony now moved with curiosity, wonder, and fear. Some stumbled as they discovered feelings for the first time. Some laughed, touched, or shouted in astonishment. The psychic network, once cold and uniform, now pulsed with countless individual hearts. At the cliff's edge, Elias held Serene's hand tightly. Her glow had intensified, her form radiating warmth like living light. Every pulse of her emotion sent waves across the valley, awakening more of her people. Yet he could feel the tension. The High Council had not vanished. Their opposition was coming, and it would be formidable. "They'll try to stop us," Elias said softly, his voice steady despite the rising storm. "They will not understand what awakening means." Seren nodded, eyes wide but resolute. "Then we will show them. We will show them life." Together they descended into the valley. The first fully awakened Ilari greeted them with cautious smiles, some unsure of their feelings, others already filled with wonder. Many looked at Elias as if he were a miracle, a spark of the world beyond their own. They were drawn to him not out of obedience, but because of something he had given them, the possibility of choice. Elias whispered encouragements, explaining that fear was natural, but it need not be paralyzing. Serene moved among them, her hands brushing theirs, her presence teaching them that emotion could be beautiful, powerful, and safe. Each touch sent ripples across the psychic field, strengthening their individuality while keeping the awakening gentle, balanced. But even as hope spread, danger approached. Across the valley, dark figures moved with precision and authority, the High Council's agents. Their forms shimmered, luminous yet cold, and their eyes glowed with disapproval. They would not allow this transformation. They had planned to erase Seren, and with her the spark of awakening she had unleashed. Elias gritted his teeth. "Stay close to me," he instructed Seren. "We cannot let them undo what we've started." Seren's hand tightened around his. "I will not let them," she said, her voice steady. "Not now. Not ever." The Council's agents advanced, projecting commands through the psychic field. "Return to the network. Cease this awakening. You are forbidden to feel." Their voices were cold, threatening, trying to impose control on minds that were learning freedom. Seren stepped forward, and Elias felt a surge of energy emanate from her. She lifted her hands, and a wave of light rippled outward, striking the agents. They staggered, surprised by the intensity of raw human-inspired emotion. For the first time they hesitated, unsure how to contain something they had never experienced themselves. "This is our world now," Elias said firmly. "Not theirs, ours." Serene's energy spread through the valley. Crystals quivered, reflecting light in dazzling patterns. The awakening Ilari felt the surge and reacted instinctively. Some laughed, some gasped, some reached out to each other with trembling hands. Humanity had not imposed itself on Illustra. It had awakened its heart. The High Council's leaders tried to regain control, projecting authority through the psychic network, but the system no longer obeyed them. Individuality had taken root, and the once uniform consciousness resisted manipulation. Even the most loyal Ilari hesitated, sensing the truth of Seren's words and the reality of their own feelings. Elias and Seren moved through the valley side by side. He marveled at how her confidence had grown, how she radiated life. Every time she touched another awakened Ilari, she imparted understanding, encouragement, and joy. Elias realized that her awakening was not just personal, it was planetary. She was becoming the heartbeat of Illustra itself. They reached the base of the Council's citadel. Its crystalline walls glimmered, untouched by emotion until now. But faint tremors spread through the structure as Seren's power surged. Agents tried to resist, but their commands fell weak against the wave of feelings flowing through the network. Seren turned to Elias, a determined glint in her eyes. "We have to go inside. We must show them that awakening is not destruction. That feeling is not weakness," he nodded. "Then let's do it, together." They entered the citadel. The halls were vast and cold, reflecting the sterile perfection the Council had maintained for centuries. But now light from Seren's energy danced along the walls, revealing the beauty and complexity of the architecture in a new way. Emotion gave it meaning. The Council's agents approached, attempting to block their path. Elias stepped forward, speaking calmly but firmly. "You do not have to fear this. Emotion is not chaos. It is life." For the first time, the Council listened, not with minds that obeyed orders, but with hearts newly awakened. They sensed the pulse of Illustra, the ripple of Seren's influence, the bond between human and Ilari. Curiosity, wonder, and even doubt entered their thoughts, feelings they had not known for centuries. Seren raised her hands, her energy bathing the room in warmth and color. "See," she said softly, "life is not perfection. Life is choice. Life is feeling. We can be awake without destroying ourselves." The agents and counselors hesitated, their cold resolve softening as new emotions touched them. Faces once stoic now reflected astonishment, awe, and even a hint of joy. They had feared humanity's influence, but now they felt its truth. Emotion could strengthen, not weaken. Elias placed a hand gently on Serene's shoulder. "It's working," he whispered. "Yes," she replied, eyes shining. "They are waking, all of them." Through the halls of the citadel, across the valley, and into the distant spires, awakening spread like sunlight through clouds. The Ilari, one by one, began to explore their emotions. They laughed, spoke, and touched one another. Small gestures at first, but each one a declaration of individuality. The psychic network, once rigid and cold, now pulsed with life. The Council's leader, once unmoved, stepped forward. Its voice, resonating across the room, was no longer commanding but curious. We understand. Perhaps this is not wrong. Seren smiled, reaching out to the leader. It is right, it is life. It is what we were always meant to be. The transformation was complete. Illustra's cities, once silent and perfect, now hummed with activity. Crystals floated and danced in joyful patterns. Music filled the air, the first notes of melody in centuries. Light played across the spires in colors no one had ever seen, reflecting the diversity of individual hearts. Elias stood beside Seren on the citadel balcony, looking out over the transformed valley. You did this, he said quietly. All of it. She shook her head. We did this together. You gave me courage. You gave me the choice to awaken, and together, we gave them all life. The twin moons rose, their reflections dancing across the valley below. Elias felt a profound sense of wonder. Humanity had not conquered Illustra. Humanity had given it freedom. Humanity had given it love, curiosity, and hope. Serene turned to him, radiant in the glow of her power. Do you think they will remember this? They will, Elias replied. Every awakened Ilari will carry this day in their hearts. They will pass it down, story by story, touch by touch, and one day Illustra will sing with life the way we dreamed it could. She smiled and touched his hand gently. The psychic network pulsed in response, shimmering with warmth. The bond between human and Ilari, between worlds, had become unbreakable. As they watched the valley, a single thought spread across the awakened minds of Illustra. Life was a gift, and love, born the pure connection between beings, was the greatest awakening of all. Elias knew they could not stay forever. Earth called him back, and other worlds waited for humanity's curiosity. But Illustra was no longer asleep. Its people were awake, alive, and ready to explore not just their planet, but the universe beyond. Seren whispered softly, leaning against him. I feel everything. And it is beautiful. Yes, Elias said, smiling. It is, and it always will be. The valley hummed with life, the crystals singing, the moon shining, and the awakened Ilari moving freely through the world. Illustra had learned to love, to laugh, and to feel. And in return, it loved humanity back, and somewhere in the distant stars, humans would tell stories of Illustra, the world that had slept for centuries, and of a boy's courage, a girl's awakening, and the slow, gentle kiss of life that had changed everything. Illustra was alive. Its people were free, and humanity had reminded the universe what it meant to care, to awaken, and to hope.